Everybody, I am David Bloom. I am the pinch hitting in the spirit of the National League Championship Series Dodgers and Cubs match. I am pinch hitting for the esteemed Kimberly King Burns to moderate this fine panel discussing some of the issues around building brand, about entertainment franchises and properties. And I think it's become a really interesting area as brand becomes more and more important to be found, for goodness sakes. We no longer have people just picking 3 channels and watching that or watching whatever comes into the theater on a random Saturday. So these folks, we're a little bit down on the bodies, though. I feel a little bit like Beau Geste in some ways, throwing the dead ones up on the battlements to make it look like there's more people there to scare off the attackers. So that means we get to wring more value out of the 3 brilliant people that are up here. I will let each of them introduce themselves to begin with, and we may still get a 4th person to join us to further add to the proceedings. So if we could begin.
I'll start.
That's great.
I'm Mike Richards. I'm the executive producer of The Price is Right and Let's Make a Deal. And then my production company has an overall deal with Fremantle North America, the production company, to develop and create and sell and distribute new shows and create new brands.
Hi, I'm Linda Ong. I'm the founder of TruthCo, and I'm now just taken a position as Chief Culture Officer at Civic Entertainment Group. And we develop cultural strategies to help people understand how to create brands and content that really make an impact on culture.
Hi, my name is Phillip Shafiran. I'm Director of Content Activation and Brand Management for Bona Productions. We're well known for America's Funniest Home Videos, among other brands that we produce. My primary responsibilities are handling the massive Bona library of 1 million+ clips of UGC content and finding new revenue streams and partnerships for that library.
And our latecomer, who I won't shame for trundling in a little bit past start time, is going to introduce himself right now.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. My name is Lemuel Plummer. I'm the CEO at L Plummer Media. We're a full-service production company, and we produce a lot of unscripted reality shows, docu-series for a couple NBC networks, BET, Viacom networks, BET, MTV, some other places. So happy to be here.
We are happy you all made it, and we're happy to have a fantastic panel here to go on a bit about all this stuff. So let's start. It feels like, as I said, that branding is more important than ever, and I'm just sort of curious, are there any things that you guys are doing as you 3, and then Linda, why don't you chime in about sort of big picture stuff from all the folks that you've dealt with over the years, particular tricks and approaches that you're using when you begin working with something, when you try to contain or sustain an existing long-running franchise. Both you guys have very long-running ones, and Lemuel, you're making ones in a particular niche, I suspect, generally speaking. So how do you keep the energy going for the old-timer brands, and how do you build one for the new ones? So Lemuel will give you a half a second to recover as you settle in. Mike, why don't you start with Price is Right and all of that? So.
Yeah. Both Price is Right and Let's Make a Deal come with a very well-known brand, priced probably even more than Let's Make a Deal, because Let's Make a Deal was off the air for 26 years before we brought it back. So I looked at it 2 ways. Price is Right, I started on the year after Drew Carey started, and I spent a lot of time, even before I took the job, looking at what was it about Price is Right that worked, and what is it that people like about it, and what would make people in 2008 or 9 watch it. And I think we kind of have that review every year to see, is this still a watchable show? Is this still a viable show? And I know on America's Funniest Videos, I mean, I know when you guys rebooted it with new hosts and all that, it's the same thing, and what you guys have done is masterful, taking it into YouTube and digital and all that. It's amazing. People don't understand how well they're doing with that, but
thank you very much.
It's awesome. But so what we look at is, what is the brand, what works for us, and then how can we expand that without alienating our core audience. We have a core audience of roughly 5 million people that watch it regularly, and what do we do to make sure that we keep them and we don't alienate them, but then we also bring on the new younger people, and we attacked it in many different ways. But we have this saying, is it Price is Righty? Whether it's a new game.
Is that a new adverb?
It is a new
Price
adverb.
is Righty?
Yes. I'm starting it today.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm going to endorse that. But,
I believe. Well, I don't want to fight.
What would be the sort of distillation of Price is Rightiness?
It's tough to quantify. I believe it's our job as the producers and the production company to really know it. But it's an instinct. Does that music hit feel like Price is Right, or are we headed towards Deal or No Deal, which was a great show, but we don't want to light it that way. We don't want it to feel that way. Whenever we bring on new technology onto The Price is Right, it's always complicated because everything is cardboard and springs from 1972 originally, which was slide that over and we print out a new number and off we go. So when we bring on a new game, what is classic Price is Right about it, but how are we harnessing new technology to use it, whether it's a touch screen on a big board, which, if we'd built it in 1972, would have looked very different than what we built.
Cardboard is a touch screen also.
It
I don't know
is.
if you knew that.
And it's highly edible.
Highly edible.
So it's those things, and it's kind of just knowing what feels right for the show, and you know it when you see it.
And how do you manifest that out to the new audiences? 'Cause to me, some of the things that are interesting about this, particularly these veteran brands or legacy brands, I'll call them to be gentle, is this notion of, okay, you've got an established audience. How do you extend that? Can you extend that? Because you are both emboldened and imprisoned by that 5 million followers and however many AFE's got. So, Phil, why don't you jump in? Or Philip, why don't you jump in that real quick?
A lot of similar practices we try to implement as well. We've been on the air for 27 seasons, and we don't plan on stopping. And no one does. No one ever does. And our lifeblood are the clips that we receive, and we still to this day receive 3,000 to 5,000 clips a week of submissions. People still want to be a part of the AFE family, the AFE brand. Now,
and they haven't found YouTube yet, right?
Well, to your point, though, it's presented a challenge because people now are on YouTube, they're on, Vine and Twitter and Instagram, and how do we get those core demos that actually aren't very familiar with our legacy brand? How do we engage them with the show? We have a format that is tried, tested, and true. But within that format, there are little pivots that we can make. And one of the pivots that we make almost on a seasonal basis is examining the different platforms on which our content works, and even that stuff of which it doesn't work, and see why it doesn't work. And is there a way to adjust the show accordingly to grab that core demo? An example I'll give is in the last season or two, our new host, Alfonso Ribeiro, he has a wonderful past, and he also is very well known to play other roles. Before being our host, the Carlton is a very big internet meme sensation. So that seems to actually be very huge on Vine. So we adjusted.
Just to clarify, he played a character.
He
Carlton?
played the character Carlton on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air,
Okay.
and in this show, he actually had a specific dance that he does.
Do you want me to rap the opening song right now?
Oh, God, please, if we have time. And, it was...
That'll be actually at drinks after the
That's right.
after this, okay? So you can look forward to the Carlton dance.
That's right. But what we did is we took a look at Viners and Instagram and people to embrace the new host and to contemporize the AFE brand in this respect, is we did a call out for people doing their best Carlton dance impressions. And we got a tremendous response. And now we have actually integrated Vine clips themselves in the show, along with Instagram clips in the show.
Have you all thought about Musical.ly?
We are actually, this week, we're making inroads in Musical.ly. We're meeting with them later this week to talk about certain types of integrations in certain songs and certain Simon Americas that we have. So these are all things that the AFE format, which may not be able to stray much off of the television path, we can certainly make adjustments on the digital world and capture those demos that are on those platforms that maybe don't even watch the show.
Interesting. Lemuel, you have done a lot of work with BET and other platforms since then. When you are trying to figure out, and I saw you, I think you were Snapchatting us.
Yes,
Did everybody
Snapchat.
smile?
How'd I look?
You look great, man.
You're like talent now, aren't you? Totally. He does one thing we can't talk about. Now he's all talent again. So let me. So when you try to create a new project, a new property, how do you think about how do I launch this? How do I wrap franchise-worthy stuff around this? What goes into it from your standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of docu-series, following a lot of, high-profile, people, and whether it's in the faith-based community, music, comedy. When I'm coming up with my ideas, obviously my target audience is usually the African American community.
So you've at least got Black Twitter on your side.
Yes,
to start
yes,
with, right?
absolutely.
And the faith-based community on top of that.
Right.
So that's two possibilities, I guess.
Yep. But as far as coming up with ideas to franchise it and things like that, I mean, for me, like I said, when you're doing more docu-series, it's really about like when I'm coming up, like for instance, the Preachers of LA. Obviously, I want to always kind of tackle as many cities as I can. So that was one franchise that I created. Where we went and we produced the Preachers of Atlanta, Preachers of Detroit. And we franchised it there, and we've been building brands around the pastors and the communities. But around.
And where did those shows run?
Oxygen. Those
Oh,
were
they were on
yeah,
Oxygen.
it was one of the highest rated shows on Oxygen Network.
I'm not their core demographic. That's why.
No,
I
it's.
asked.
But yeah, it's we've had a lot of success, but with that project, and but yeah, I'm always thinking of what the African American community wants to see, because I live it, I grew up in it. I understand what they want to watch, and I'm always, like I said, thinking of different franchises, different worlds. So for me, like I said, I haven't really done a lot of format shows specifically, but obviously, docuseries, yes, it is somewhat a format, but you're following people's lives. Right. So in the storylines, and you're tracking those stories, in a different way than you would, a format show. So it's just different. But like I said, for me, with the Preachers, and even Music Moguls, that's something that we're about to franchise right now. That's on BET. It's we're following different moguls from each city. So each city brings something different. Each character, each person brings something different and unique. So I always want to kind of tell their story in a different way, and and hopefully the audience appreciates the storytelling and.
Right. But I mean, that's almost a conflict for a desire to try to build these things to play, to be replicable, I guess, and to push out. But you're doing it by city, interesting people by city,
Sure.
And we've got a context within which we'll put this person as a minister or as a
Mogul music.
Whatever it is. So that's the way you start to build a franchise. It's interesting, even though it's more documentary driven than just the surreality of reality.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, each city is different. Each city, each character is different. So the faith-based community in LA is completely different than Detroit. Same with Atlanta. Three completely different worlds. So it's interesting. When you're franchising, that way, and by characters and cities.
When you created those, were you thinking, hey, I think this is something that we can do in LA, and then we can go other places? I mean, is that part of
I said
it is finite. I mean, the reality docu, other than the Kardashians,
right?
have proved
Yeah,
to
there's
live
no
on.
end to the Kardashians.
Right.
But most of them, it's the way the Real Housewives, I think, were
It's
the first to do that.
Yeah, it's pretty much the exact same format as the Housewives. But I mean, obviously the Kardashians is different because it's really based on a family. So the only thing you really could do is spin off, not really franchise it, you know what I mean? But it's an ensemble doc, so each character brings something different, unique. Each story is different. So like I said, for me, it's really creating that world, LA, Preachers, and then like I said, just tackling other worlds or different cities. So for me, like I said, I've found it to be very unique and different, even with there's another series that I sold to Oxygen called Living with Funny, about comedians, and yeah, we were looking into franchising that as well. You know, we started off with living with Funny LA, you know, but there's comedians in different cities and different
They're
places.
not as funny in other cities.
But they're not as all right. So, but yeah, that's pretty much how I kind of process and kind of create and develop my ideas. But we've had a lot of success. It's been working. So I'm just taking that format and just developing something right now with MTV, kind of doing the same thing. I don't know if I want to. I mean, I can talk about the idea. It's
Go for it, man.
It's
I don't know
it's
what
a-
your
it's
lawyers
a-
are going to say, or Christina Kirk.
No,
out
it's all
here.
good. It's all good. It's a music based show, following a label. But I want to franchise the label to franchise it to different labels. So it's not necessarily about the city, but the label. You know what I mean? So
which typically these small indie labels bring a sensibility and all that.
Exactly.
But you've got this broader notion of it's not a format, but it's something.
Yeah.
You guys have to come up with. Linda, you come up with a name because
Well, I think
this is what
it's-
you're the
I
consultant.
mean, it's culture, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing that's really interesting about franchises are, there are things that need to be enduring, to your point, like what is something that makes it pricey, but what makes it relevant is being able
Pull
to...
the mic up a little bit.
Sorry. What makes it relevant is to pivot over time, as you said, Phil. I think Housewives is a great example. My team has been studying the cultural relevance of unscripted television since the first season of Jersey Shore, so that's 2010. And it's kind of scary when you look back because you can see, like, we were able to anticipate things that were happening before people really realized they were happening. And so now when you look back, it's sort of like, it's kind of like, duh. But if you actually watch the first season of Real Housewives of Orange County, and you watch the current season, they're very different shows because, you have rich rich women, and they're in lovely houses, and they drive nice cars and have beautiful handbags. But that whole series started as a lifestyles of the rich and famous, gawkery, voyeuristic, how do the other half lives. And after the economic collapse, if they had continued to do that, it would have just been gross.
Yeah, it would have not resonated well.
Not at all when people couldn't pay their mortgages. So what happened, if you look at the trajectory of what happened to pretty much, that was really when the Housewives took off, when they made the pivot after the collapse, which is they started looking at the dysfunction among these women. They started looking about how the husbands were deadbeats. They started looking, the women if you watch those shows are all about how the women work now, with their Pinot Grigio or their sex toys,
Well, that's how
or
I
their
work with Pinot
cookbooks.
Grigio, but I mean,
But the Housewives is really an amazing kind of sociological, cultural investigation of what has happened to people with money in this country in the last 10 years. So the point is, I think, and I was just reminded of a project we just did that was really interesting for America's Next Top Model. So it's been, in its 20th season, so not as many as you all, but from the CW, it started, I think, at the WB or the UPN or whatever
One of those
before
long-
before it
long
wasn't
lost,
even what
yeah.
it is now, right? And then it was the CW, and it started with Tyra Banks, and when it blew up, it was, Tyra was the shit, and VH1 is now resurrecting it. So they came to us and they said, how do we maintain what was really awesome about that show at its height? We are not going to have Tyra. We need to cast a new host. We need to really reshape this for today's culture. And what we just to give you a little tidbit, so what we looked at is what did Tyra represent during those times of real
This is what's really interesting because she
success.
was a really polarizing figure.
She was
in
a
some
very
ways.
polarizing figure. If you think about the way they styled her and the way she appeared on camera in the heyday of that show, she was always like a crazy empress. She was like this mad dictator.
She's now on Empire, and she's
exactly.
Taraji
She's
B,
just,
yeah.
So she's just all the codes and cues, which is what we look at in culture, is like what are sort of the tells, right, that aren't necessarily the obvious things. The way she's styled, the way her demeanor was very imperious and regal. And back then, before the collapse, that's, a lot of women's power was really what we would say soft power, which was a lot of women's power was generally accepted in culture as either inherited or married into, right? Today, if you're going to do a powerful woman, it's not going to be someone who's inherited that power. It's someone who's earned it, and someone like Beyonce, right? Someone who's really worked really hard to she's hustled, she's got grit, nobody gave her an advantage, nobody gave her her checkbook. She earned every cent, and she still earns it even though she's married to Jay-Z. So we recommended that they hire someone in that role that also represented someone who hustled for her thing. So that's how we look at franchises, sort of what were the things that resonated in the culture then, why, what's the translation now? So it's not just a one-to-one, but it's really something that sort of, kind of works at the core of why the idea is franchisable in the first place, but is represented in a way that's really current.
So this is how you revive a franchise.
Yeah.
And you, who was
We
doing
were
this?
talking to you guys, but you didn't hire us.
Oh, we
so-
didn't? I'm
No.
sorry. I didn't-
And I
I'll talk to
auditioned.
you after.
And I auditioned for it. That was really a big bummer.
But yeah, I mean, it's even for the long haul, right? Like you asked Lamel, like when you're developing a show, how do you think about it in ways where it can sustain? And I think part of it is to think beyond just the entertainment value and say, I mean, I'm kind of curious. Price is Right started in the 60s,
72.
72.
Let's Make a Deal is 62.
Yeah, and
Talk over the mic.
like it'd be really fascinating to look at what was going on in the culture at the time economically that made those shows so powerful, because undoubtedly there's a corollary to, how you get them to really resonate today.
It's interesting that the Deal in the 60s was the first mindless television and widely criticized for...
You didn't watch The Munsters, did you?
That was brilliantly written and acted.
All right, well,
First of all, and
we'll
the,
have some,
and
we'll
by
have
the way,
some
the
cultural conversation about that.
Yeah.
Also at the wine at 5 o'clock. so.
and the car in the Munsters was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So that all fit into car
Munsters
culture in the 60s.
basically the Osbournes.
Yeah, but actually, Let's Make a Deal was how could you do this? This is mindless. We want highbrow things. And Monty Hall created this amazing show, which he still is a consultant on, that was not about that. It was about an experience. It was about taking a chance or enjoying what you have.
And
it's
that may have
fascinating.
been, and I guarantee you if we look at it, there was something in the culture that was television, and especially unscripted, whether it's a game show or a docuseries or whatever, tends to reflect our desires. What do we want? And we put that into television, so it'd be really interesting to see,
when we
why
launched,
there was that desire.
and when we launched Let's Make a Deal, we launched it in 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And
Relaunched it, really.
relaunched it,
Relaunched,
yeah.
right.
And it was fascinating because we would offer the same amount of money to buy something back. So, like, do you want What's Behind the Curtain or do you want $500? The same amount of money that Monty offered in the 80s. And because of the collapse, people were like, yep, I'll take it. And we're like, no. You want, there's Wayne would literally be up there. There could be a car. I can see the outline of it. I mean, and people, because of the time and because of how people had been conditioned and that debt was bad and that a sure thing was good.
Right.
We fought that for the first couple seasons and now it changed. And we were
I'm
in
flashing on
Vegas.
Austin Powers. We're going to hold you hostage for $1 million.
No, it was like we could never offer it. I mean, Monty used to be like, I have $1,000 bill here. You can have the $1,000 bill plus whatever goes with it, or you can have, and we could never do that. We were like, I have a dollar bill on the outside.
Yeah.
There may be pennies inside, and people would take the dollar bill. I mean, it was crazy.
It's really interesting you talk about the financial differences between the different decades, because in 27 seasons we haven't changed our
money
winnings
amount.
either.
Yeah.
You either win $10,000 for first place or $100,000 for grand prize, and I think we've given out $14 million over the course of the series, but the prize itself has never changed. But I think what was also interesting is talking about the cultural significance is that sometimes a demographic it needs to be introduced to a cultural idea or in a cultural practice. I mean, AFV started, Vinda Bona saw a bit during a Japanese variety hour called Fun with Kato and Chen.
Yep.
And in this bit, they showed Japanese home movies, and Vin thought, well before his time, hey, we need to, the American population is going to love that. And he seeded it to the United States, and it exploded from then. And
Yeah, I have to say that I'm really grateful he didn't bring the part about Japanese shows where they torture
Right.
their-
No, that
their
doesn't go
contestants.
over.
They just brought the videos.
That doesn't go
which
over
is-
very well.
They torture themselves, actually.
yeah, absolutely.
But that is interesting. So he sees this little thing, he makes the translation. That leads me to another question I want to ask about, which is, where do you take a show like any of these, and stuff that Lemuel's done, you guys have done, how do you take it overseas? How do you take it into new media? What's working, what doesn't for your shows when you try to take these franchises? I mean, I've seen I think I've seen Price is Right, one-armed bandits in Vegas and things like that. I mean, I'm pretty sure we're not seeing any pastor one-armed bandits in Vegas.
Actually, no.
That's a good
Maybe
idea.
on one of the
actually.
riverboats in Detroit, right?
That's the next show. That's the next show.
Right?
You just
I
give me a
like
new
that.
Wait, I've got it. It's a halo on the top of it.
There you go.
Yeah. God's with you when you pull. Yes. Put your quarter in here, buddy. He'll take care of you.
like that.
Carrie Underwood, Jesus Take the Wheel. I've got it. It's all here, guys. We can do this. Call me.
But seriously, let's start with you, Linda. So as you look at your shows, they are very location specific. And can you think about taking them overseas to some other places? I don't know, ministers of London or ministers of Brussels or whatever. But two, I mean, can you pull them into other experiences online, in live experience, in merchandise? I mean, is there any opportunity there for you as you try to figure out how to expand your brands?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that you just said, we've actually been doing with the preachers, franchising it, internationally, overseas. Preachers we are actually exploring, Africa, a lot of different.
What part of Africa are you doing? South Africa or
Nigeria. We have
those
some
are the two big
relationships.
markets, right?
Sure.
Okay.
But I mean, there's a lot of people can relate to preachers and their lives and things like that. So yeah, we've definitely explored those different options to really kind of take it overseas. But as far as other opportunities outside of that, I would say sure. These guys have books. They have all sorts of things that They
have the good book.
They have the good books. I don't know if you guys know Joel Osteen, but
Right,
he's
a big
very
minister.
huge minister. Has profited tremendously off of his books, tens of millions of dollars. So for us, that's definitely something that we look into. With the ministers and preachers and bishops. They have relationships with their congregants. So every Sunday, there's 3 different services. They're always selling different types of things direct to consumer.
Recordings, videos.
Videos.
Do you guys get, as the producers, do you get a piece? Because sometimes we get that and sometimes we don't.
If it's yes, and if it's really about the actual project, the show, yes. If it's related to preachers of LA or Atlanta or Detroit or wherever we go, sure. But outside of that, no, we can't really. We didn't negotiate.
Right. My son works for a TV production company, and they've been trying to figure out how to do a publishing unit.
Yeah.
Because they've got people creating stuff, and they kind of light turned on. Oh, maybe we could make some money off this. So,
Yeah.
The books that we're talking about for these ministers, for instance, as you say, they frequently are thoughtful people and do write a lot about their faith and life and all that. Rick Warren's another example. Beyond Joel Osteen is a super church guy. But are these guys that you pick? Are they at that level?
Yeah, these are very prominent pastors, very credible. These guys have had a lot of experience, longevity in ministering to people. So yeah, these guys are very successful.
Well, I'm just sort of curious because in picking them, I was just curious if you pick the ones who haven't quite got the book deal yet.
Yeah.
So you can get in on that, or do you pick the one who's already got 5 books out there? I mean, it's sort of an interesting question. Right?
They're so new to this space. So sometimes it's I wouldn't say it's easy. Yes, it's easier to deal with the guy who doesn't have as much success as some of these other guys. But like I said, most of our cast members have been very successful preachers, pastors. So, but even outside of just the preachers franchise, even with the Music Moguls, these guys, they've been monetizing and making money in other areas of their lives. So
they say 360 deal.
360.
That's when you start talking to them.
Right.
What's that deal look like though? If you're doing it with a mogul like that for a TV show?
It's a sensitive thing. It's very we've our cast was like Snoop Dogg and Birdman, so they've already kind of have a lot of they have deals already, so it's kind of a little bit more difficult to.
You can't put a cast album out or something like
right.
that.
But we're looking into into doing that, especially with when we franchise it or spin it off with some of the other guys. But with the current cast that we have, it's as far as 360 deals or anything like that. No, we don't.
Right.
But
Something to think about.
yeah, absolutely.
So, Mike, I'm just curious because, like I said, I have indeed seen The Price is Right, One Arm Bandit, and you and Lemuel, I'm sure, are going to look at some downstream opportunities for the ministers in Vegas. But where are the places that they've taken that brand? And I want to ask the same thing of Philip in a minute too. Where has it popped up as they've tried to take that out in other places?
It's been everywhere. I mean, it's been in tons of, I should know the number, but I'm not on that side of it. But I mean, it's been in Australia, it's been in France, it's been in England, it's been all over Europe. There was a Price is Right, India.
Christina Kirk, you've got that memorized.
Yes, please.
Right?
Yes, give us all the information. But no, I had an executive tell me, if you want to make, I forget what it was, $12 billion or something, create an international game show format that travels, that just goes everywhere. And what's great about game shows, to what you were saying, which was so great, which is people can relate to preachers and ministers because they are almost everywhere in the world. It turns out there are the prices and values of things almost everywhere in the world. And so that when a great game or videos that are people doing funny things at home, that travels because that is a common experience. And what happens to be really good about a great game show is that it has a common experience. And so Price is Right has been franchised everywhere. It's got a live stage show that tours around the United States nonstop. And I mean, it just.
Right, you mentioned this before, and I want
Yeah.
to talk about this. So there's a live stage show of The Price is Right.
Yep.
And people show up to go see the thing they could watch on TV.
Correct.
And they pay money.
Right.
And you all make money from that.
Correct. Show business.
But they can win money.
They can win things on it. I mean, no, it's about being a part of an experience. The Price is Right and Let's Make a Deal and all of CBS Daytime was just put a thing, an installation into the Paley Center, an exhibit, and we have a wheel that is very similar to the wheel on the show, not the exact wheel, but a very similar wheel. And that feeling of spinning the wheel, I saw very important people that could do just about anything they would like to do in television go spin that wheel. And so that's what you're paying to go do, and it's on the road. And one of the things we've done on both shows to expand our market and to get to where people would come to it is if you can't fly yourself to Los Angeles, then you don't get to be on the show. And that seems like an injustice because this is a show where everyone's supposed to be able to come. And so we do regular contestant searches and fly people that win out, and then they get to be on the show and they get called down and they spend the weekend in Los Angeles. And so we do all of that is run online and with the local affiliates. I mean, it is the tentacles of this thing, and managing that is the fun part of the job. And then always looking for whatever the next thing is. To you guys, again, look at the empire that is America's Funniest Videos. It's like everywhere, and they've done a great job of not just being a TV show, but the businesses around it are spectacular.
Yeah, in the eyes of entertainment, comedy is very universal. Our library, as big as it is, the lion's portion of our funny or amazing clips don't need translation.
They're all about putting a wedding cake in your spouse's
Right,
face,
or a kick to the crotch or something.
Yeah.
That is funny.
Yeah, it's either the kid
Legitimately.
swinging the wiffle ball bat and hitting dad right in the part that
that's
hurts.
That's right. So we have so much content that transcends language and transcends different cultural practices. It is, and not to mention the fact that along with the game show format, clip show formats are very lucrative in terms of a global market. I know the number, don't quote me on the number, but I know that we are basically our version, either a licensed version or a local version of our show is seen in about 190 territories across the globe. With your standard, Australia's Funniest, the UK has one, I think, it's called blanket.
It's
on it.
called the UK's most droll videos.
Yeah, most drollsome. Yeah, no, it's. But we have all these other products that use AFV's clips. And that does transcend a lot of different demos. And another thing that has been just king for us is the digital world. Is the advent of YouTube and Vine and Instagram and Snapchat. These are ways that we can reach an audience that otherwise wouldn't really know anything about our TV show, because you have to come to Los Angeles to watch our show, or you can just go online to one of our dozens of owned and operated channels and watch amazing compilations of babies, dogs, cats, and fails, and know that ties back into this household name brand.
Are those your 4 categories? It's
And crotch
fishbowl
shots.
finish, right?
Crotch shots too. I don't even want to get into how many different crotch shots we have in this library. It's ridiculous.
Well, I remember
I think I
Vin-
mentioned to you that early in the show's thing, I socialized a couple times with an early high-ranking guy there, and he talked about the window into Americans from all those
Oh, I can
3,000 to
imagine.
5,000 videos, and it got worse toward the end of the season, and everybody was they had a form to fill out, they had little notations for the crotch shot, for the wedding cake, and they would just do that on to the next one, and is that how it is now?
It still is, if it ain't broke, that still it is. I actually started 15 years ago at AFV, and I started as a screener. And my job was to watch, and this was back in VHS and high-eight, and this is, there was no thumb drives or DVDs, let alone digital submissions. And, my job was to watch countless hours of tape after tape of...
And yet you seem so normal now.
I had to go in for some debriefing, but it worked out okay.
A little PTSD.
Yeah, a little PTSD. But what also makes it so significant is that now that we're in the digital age, our entire library now essentially lives up in the cloud. And every single piece of submission or any piece of footage that comes in is meticulously scrutinized and meticulously metadata and profiled with certain data points. So at a heartbeat, if I want to find, dog, piñata, baby, fail, I'm going to get 50,000 of those clips, and I'm going to know of those which, it's an amazing database. I'm going to know which of those clips are available for international use, domestic use, which can go on to our digital platforms, to our partner distributions. So there is a system behind everything that we get, and even the stuff that doesn't necessarily make the cut, we also hang on to, because, to your point, we have to re-envision the brand and try different things that pertain to the AFV library.
So would
can I
you
just-
say that the coming of the internet clip universe, which is extraordinary, I mean, I don't know how many hours it is per minute of video are now uploaded to YouTube, never mind everything else, that while that presented a challenge initially, it has opened up the brand and the franchise in the long run.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, when YouTube in 06 came out, we were terrified. I mean, that was the tone around the office, because we thought, well, there go all our clips. Now there's no need for anybody to send them in. Now it has turned into one of our biggest partners. That, and along with Facebook now getting into video posting as well. It has opened up our brand in ways that we couldn't imagine 10 years ago. Not just with the exposure of AFV, but our ability to test other games for the show, to test other products that may relate to Bona Productions. It has been one of our best friends and allies in actually reaching people with funny or amazing video. And in fact, I think that YouTube's creation has actually helped our submissions, because everybody now wants that fulfillment of seeing their video in a space. Hey, that's me up there. Hey, that's my cousin. And now we get that with YouTube, and I think that has also translated to people wanting to see their clip on television still. And I think as far as YouTube is concerned, it has really, really buoyed our entire business, as opposed to...
So everything that you put on, though, is still stuff that's coming in. You're not licensing clips from anybody else.
No, it is all ours. It is all ours.
I know the guys over at Jukin Media, and they license.
Well,
thousands of
there's different models. We're familiar with Jukin, a lot of other models in that space where they reach out to people and they do revenue sharing as well. We don't need to go down that road as of yet. It's been discussed, but as of right now, it is not a necessity at all. I think what is a necessity is who can get that best viral clip first. who retains possession of it, whether it's for the show or for licensing or for monetization? How do you get that? Because one thing that has changed with YouTube is that filmmakers are becoming very savvy. You know, my father putting a video up, he wouldn't know the first thing about monetizing, he wouldn't know the first thing about ad revenue, he wouldn't know the first thing about any of that. But any of my friends or my brother knows exactly what a YouTube partnership program is, knows that they can monetize, knows that they can do SEO metadata tagging to get up in the algorithm, know about claiming and rights management. So, I mean, these are the things you have to address.
Now, that person you're talking about is 4 years old, right?
Right, you might as well be. I mean, this is true. We're born on the phone. I have a 2-year-old daughter who now knows how to use my cell phone.
Right.
It's just intuitive.
She's
And-
like showing you each time the new iOS.
Yeah, she's showing me how to
version
install
comes
some
out.
apps that I
Like,
know.
no, Daddy,
It's
no, this is
incredible.
what you can do now. Get it right.
No, but I think digitally has helped the brand globally as well.
Interesting. So, Linda, I want to circle back to you for the sort of big picture. What are you seeing as brands, younger ones and more legacy ones, want to move beyond their core audience? What are the tricks? What are the interesting platforms they're taking? It's not just, oh, I'm going to go to Australia, but you know, how are they? What are they doing, and what are they taking? What are they plucking out that makes it work somewhere else?
Yeah, well, I think it ultimately starts with understanding that today when you have a franchise, what you really have is a piece of IP, right? And that IP can be deployed in many, many ways. And what the best brands are doing, you know, you take like USA with Mr. Robot, and even though that's not a franchise, you understand like there's a rabid fan following behind that show. And so the opportunity to take the idea of the show, if they wanted to franchise it, they wouldn't have to only be vertical and franchise it in television. They could franchise it in a 360 model, because that's really ultimately, from a consumer perspective, they don't care if you're in the television business or the digital business or live experience business. They want to be in your IP business. And so one of the reasons I joined Civic is that Civic's whole philosophy is about taking brands into experiential activations.
Well, you saw that with Mr. Robot as a good example, because they did a VR piece that was very
100%,
well regarded
right.
between the two seasons.
Right, and at Comic-Con, they set up a whole Coney Island boardwalk, and they, you know, the whole idea of taking these worlds and these, whether it's preachers or, you know, a game show or a video, and taking it into a place where people can actually touch and feel and interact with that is much more valuable than having necessarily another show on a network that has the same idea. And so I think that the idea of franchising in general, and you know, some of the docuseries have done it. I know Bravo at some point had a publishing arm, and you know, they were making deals with publishers and things like that. But I think they were almost ahead of the curve, because now when people become fans of a show or fans of a franchise, they cannot get enough. And so I think in terms of taking that to other territories, it's really about identifying. I like to call it, instead of fandom, call it brandom, right? Where does that brandom live? Where can you see that? Who might your partners? I am going to, as soon as I get off. Mike's going to do it. But it is really about looking at audiences. It's interesting also because we see a shift from people talking about viewers to talking about audiences. And I think that's a very intentional industry shift, because an audience can be a live audience, an audience can be people who buy a book, but a viewer is really just somebody who watches the show. So I think that would be the first thing, is not, because consumers don't think about platforms, they don't think about, you know, where they want to see something. It's, you know, it's funny, I have a lot of fights with people about mostly of a certain generation who don't understand, who really resists this whole idea that people don't want to watch on a 50-inch TV. And then I say to them, but you realize that the generation today has grown up watching TV in the back of a minivan, you know, with like a little monitor. And now you've got a 2-year-old who's growing up starting, you know, television is very, very personal now. So I think if you think about, again, the gamut of experiences that people want to have with an idea that they really like, it might be really personal and up close, or it might be with 50,000 other people that they can just sort of revel in their fandom. So
At the Price is Right live show.
yeah, so I think all those things that you guys are doing to take the idea out there and go beyond television is the real opportunity. And most companies today are either partnering or starting divisions so that they can do all those things.
So they're starting divisions. Who would you say has done a good job with that?
Oh, you
You've
gotta
seen,
put
'cause
me
you've worked
on
with
the
so many
spot.
different
I mean, I'm gonna hedge, and I'm gonna say the people who've done a really good job with it are the agents.
Okay, so
The talent
WME,
agents,
CAA.
yeah, and UTA. The talent agents
Because
have.
they get brand better than anybody, right?
They've really figured out. I mean, the fact that all these media companies and franchises are in the IP business, and essentially what the agents do is they bring partners to the IP, and so they have an event management arm, they have a publishing arm, they have a digital arm, they have all the. So I think part of it is really using those agents as hubs to create those relationships between your talent, your franchise, and the partners that you want to be, whether it's publishing or an airline or, all these different people are coming and they're kind of all coalescing around the agents. So it seems like they really have a lot of power right now.
So they're kind of like the pivot in packaging
Yeah.
the IP.
Yeah, so I don't really, I'm hedging because I don't really want to name names, but I'll think about it.
All right, you think about it, and you're going to chime in later and let us know who you're willing to talk about.
Okay.
So the next step, I guess, I'm sort of curious, Lemuel, is it easier for you to work within a very defined audience? I mean, they've got very general ones. I mean, who watches that show, right? It could be anybody, right? But typically, you are pitching for a specific audience. Does that make it simpler or easier, do you think? Or simpler or tougher? What do you think?
To create shows for
Create the show, to
I think
sustain the show? as
for my
a-
audience,
Yeah.
I think it's harder because we have fewer resources.
Yeah, fewer resources, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
just just fewer resources, and I just that's really it. Just fewer resources for the audience that I target with my programming.
So you mean it's fewer people willing to say yes to a pitch, fewer places
Yes,
to go?
fewer,
and
fewer
start?
places to go, fewer places to take it. It's just the opportunities are not there. Even budget. I mean, budget. Oh, this means. Yeah, it's just I feel like yes. To answer your question, there are fewer.
Has it gotten any better in the last couple of years? And we've seen things like Empire that have taken off, and the networks have went, oh.
Yeah,
could
I
have
think
black programming.
yeah,
That's
I
an
think
idea.
I think they're getting it now. I think so. I think even when I talk to my agents at CA, they're it's like the networks are now starting to realize that African American programming or urban or
Yeah,
minority
whatever you wanna call
programming
it, right,
is really starting to work, and they're getting the ratings. But yeah, there are fewer places that I can take shows. It's just, but there are, it's changing slowly. But I think right now, like I had a meeting with MTV, and they're looking to buy a lot more African American programming. But a year ago, that wasn't really a reality. But networks there's fewer networks. There's hundreds of networks, but there's only so many networks that we can take, African American programming. So
I have to say, I love the fact that we've got a diverse panel here. I'm normally at a tech conference. Their idea of diverse panels is 5 white guys and an Indian guy. So this is really spectacular.
You got a twofer. You got a woman and
Oh
an
yeah,
Asian
exactly. I'm like glorying in this. So that's interesting. So Linda, are there, from your perspective, folks who have a very defined audience like Lemuel typically has, what are you seeing across the spectrum in terms of building brands, building opportunities for what are typically more niche-oriented programming? Are there opportunities and challenges
Well,
here?
it's all changing, right? Because now with so much digital, so many choices through digital, we have really an amazing plethora of POVs to see, and we're in a place in culture right now where, and I don't think this applies to either Price or Funniest Home Videos, but in the non, in the more docu-series or scripted or traditional unscripted space, we are seeing people are more actually interested in very specific POVs rather than kind of one size fits all. And I think the challenge is, and you probably have this from just your screening days, is, when you have a ton of content, 90% of it is shit. Right, is mediocre.
Is 90% actually
We
low?
actually have a box called shit that we
Do you really?
It's like, but a good, when you have
that
a
would be so
lot,
great.
when you have a lot, there's a lot of dreck.
You're inundated with it, yes.
Right, and that's part of the issue that consumers have right now is even though we have a wealth of choices, peak TV is maybe 1% of those choices. So I think what you're seeing is that there is really an appetite for people who are telling really unique stories, and very often those are coming from points of view that have not been out there in a main stage kind of format. So, you look at something like Empire, which is, they're bringing in a big black audience, but they're just bringing in a big audience. And so part of it is understanding that, look, we're going through a very convulsive period in this country right now, talking about generational change, racial change, all kinds of women, all kinds of social segments of the population that have been marginalized are now assuming power. And so the country's really interested in hearing, I have this thing, I say outsiders are the new insiders. It's like the country's really interested in hearing points of view that they haven't heard before. And things that are generic, people are by and large kind of becoming less interested in.
I have to say I really love the new Marvel Netflix show, Luke Cage. It's and one of the things I love about it, Mike Coulter, I think his name is the star, and he's an enormously charismatic guy, but it's set in Harlem, which doesn't get any kind of, has never gotten any kind of reasonable portrayal in media of any kind whatsoever, and it shows that, there's some problems here because it's a superhero show and you need something superheroes to fix, but also some real community and some just everyday life.
Well, it's really interesting when you look at the shows or the kind of genres that are typically most diverse, they're post-apocalyptic or they're superheroes. So you look at like the Avengers, which is essentially, and Guardians of the Galaxy, it's all like motley crew of outsiders saving the world. You look at Walking
And
Dead.
not the band, let's just be clear here.
And not what?
Not the band.
Not
Motley
the
Crue,
band.
yeah.
No, not the band. Sorry. Yes, sorry. That was not my reference, but that was yours. Okay. No, but you just see that there's an appetite to see people who have not been the traditional heroes in our culture being celebrated together, right? And really all different, really a very millennial sense of individuality. We're all different. Everybody doesn't have to hew to a certain look or, behavior or whatever. And so I think we're really kind of fascinated right now in hearing stories from people that just are not like us. So it's an interesting time.
Interesting. We have some time left, but I don't want to get between you all and the wine, so we're going to open it up to questions right now, if anybody has some, or I will turn you loose. In the back, man standing, project. Tell us who you are.
BJ Chorus for Hollywood Moment. Mike, with number one for 30 years for daytime CBS, and you bringing in two of the best shows for CBS, what do you see the future for your shows going forward to take it for another 3 decades on television?
Well, thank you. I think it's about what we've all been talking about, which is continuing to evolve them. I think you can either put your feet up and go, hey, this is what we do and this is our thing, and you can leave it there, or you can do what we do on both shows, which is completely disassemble them at the end of every season and go, okay, if we were going to do this for the first time, how would we do it and what would it look like? And it's about pushing the envelope. And, the great thing with social media for Price is Right, we had someone's 3 contestants tie spinning $1 yesterday, and my mom visiting my sister in North Carolina saw it on the front page of Yahoo, and then it was on the local news, and then it was and went everywhere. And so our reach goes so much further than CBS right now. And I think we had one of our models accidentally give away a car last season, and it ended up with, like 18 million.
Think she was Oprah or what?
No, she thought the game was over and it was time to just reveal them.
And she's grateful she's still with the show.
Yeah, well, and she thought she was going to get in trouble, and as it happened, I went, no, this is going to be the most viral moment in the history of the
Worth
show.
more than a car,
Oh,
believe me.
trust me. Yeah. So no, I think it's about pushing and can, you know, and CBS is a great partner for us because they love the fact that we're always pushing the envelope, whether it's with specials or prizes or guest stars or moments or, you know, just Wayne Brady on Let's Make a Deal is pound for pound the most talented person in media. And you get to watch him completely show off, I don't know, not completely, 50% of his abilities every day on Let's Make a Deal. And I think that's special and about getting great talent and building it around the talent, like what you were talking about with the Carlton. Like that is so smart. That is not going, hey, Bergeron did it this way, let's just bring in someone else that'll just do it the same way. It's about reinventing the show.
I want to see the Wayne Brady dance.
The Wayne Brady is
Forget Carl.
one
I
of the
want Wayne Brady.
greatest, an amazing dancer. I want to
I'm sure
direct
he
you
is.
to.
But I wouldn't mess with him. That Dave LaChapelle skit he did years
No?
ago. I just don't mess with him.
He loves that reference. He was on Dancing with the Stars and did a James Brown tribute that was ridiculous. And so it's just so some of it's about who's the talent, and I think you guys have your brand is the talent, and that what you've been so good at is going, this is my brand, and this is how to, and exploit it has a negative connotation, but this is how to show all the layers of the onion to the audience and let them in, and then go to a different place under the same name of the show, but have a completely different brand in a completely different location. And I think that's what's worked with you guys. So I think it's all of those things, it's just continuing to, we think we can do it for 30 more years. We're that insane. Not me personally.
And I think everyone should go to the Bailey Center. It's there through November 27th.
Yes, they
What a
should.
nice plug.
Yeah, everyone go.
See a plan.
The tickets are on me, because
They're free.
They're free.
It's card afterward. Radio, sir. Stand up. And tell us who you are.
I'll just enunciate. My name is Dan Forer. I've got my own production company, do primarily documentaries. Also have had a hand in game shows, reality.
So this is your panel, sir, right?
Sort of. Well, what occurred to me mainly was you're talking about culture and how it's changing. I was wondering, for anybody out there, what we've been through over the last year with the election, what effect do you think that's going to have on the jobs that you do?
Well, it's kept me really busy because things are changing so much. I mean, I think that it's interesting because we're talking to one of the 6:30 news hour shows, and we're doing a project with them, and I said, we really can't start until after the election because everything's going to change the day after and the months after. I think, one thing that's really interesting that I think is going to be interesting to watch, not just what happens the day after the election, but what happens in the 3 months after. Because it's not like the day after the stock market crashed, people woke up and went, oh, we're in the Depression. It takes a while. It takes even years before, we were tracking the economic collapse in 2008. It was 2010 when people started thinking, oh, this is really happening. So I think for us, what we have to, as people who are in culture, affecting culture, playing with culture, reading it back and feeding it back, we just have to pay attention. And I think that this industry got caught short because we didn't pay attention to digital, and we were stupid because we saw it happen with music, we saw it happen in publishing, we should have known it was going to happen. And all the networks that really just kind of focused on their ratings and kept focusing on the ratings are behind now. And so I think for our jobs to remain relevant, we have to really understand that change happens and it's inevitable. And so I think what you guys do is great, which is, that re-examination every so often. Everybody needs to do that because what you see certainly in the television world is things that used to be true for 50 years are no longer true. Like just the point about the personal is universal now. That was never have worked in 1950 if you told personal stories because there were only 3 networks. You had to tell big, broad stories. But now, because there's so much choice, you can take individual voices.
And find an audience has been shown by the YouTubers
Yeah,
who
yeah.
tell extremely personal stuff
Yeah.
and find 5 million people that want
Right.
to follow them anywhere.
I mean, I think the lesson in the next, for the election, but just in this time in general, is that things change and you need to be open. And I think the other thing you said, which is really key, is you have to experiment a lot, because what I also see happen with some of our clients is they'll do something, or the old way of working was you would do something and work and be great, just keep doing that all the time. And now it's like, you did that, it was great, now you got to do it differently. And so that adaptability and flexibility is really important, and being willing to question things that were always true.
I just want to say, because of the election, I think it's a great time to be in the business of doing things that are positive and not divisive.
Yeah.
And so you come to Price is Right or Let's Make a Deal, and everyone cheers for themselves and gets excited, and somebody wins a car or gets zonked or whatever, or sees a funny video or gets to watch moguls or whatever it is. I think I think legitimately the backlash from this is that people are so sick of people yelling at each other that I think, come watch America's Funniest Home Videos where people just laugh and have a good time, and you see families win money and
Come together.
and come together.
We as a brand and as a company, we of course won't choose sides, but we certainly will capitalize on what's going on at the time and comment on it as we would within our franchise. So while we don't, put 2 cents in either any kind of debate, what we will certainly do is put together a 10-minute comp of babies babbling back at each other.
Oh, that's fun.
And let the audience in the world decide,
It can be relevant, right.
there's a relevancy there.
Right,
And I think there's something cathartic about that. And I think we certainly need that, especially right now. So there is an importance to the digital space as well.
To comment on the times.
To comment on
I
the
mean, that's
times.
what television, again, television has reflected our desires and our fears, and, it's a mirror. I want to know if you ever gave away Trump products on the show.
I don't believe that we did. No, I don't believe that we did.
But if you did, to be the best ever.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Well, I'll say this. I'm here to make America great again.
Good to have him.
Good to know.
Unless there are other questions, I will send you all off into the good night and the good wine, or good enough wine. Thank you all very much. Give this panel a
Thank
big
you,
hand.
David.
Thanks.